And just the hooligan scenes in general, brilliant. You know, you've got away travelling buses getting their windows smashed in. They start trading blows and fighting each other. People getting stabbed. It's brilliant. And you yourself start getting sucked in. Come and have a go if you think you're hard enough, because this week it's ID from 1995, directed by Phil Davis, starring Reece Dinsdale.
When a cop goes undercover to infiltrate a gang of hooligans, he finds himself being drawn to the other side.
I love films like this when the first scene tells you everything about the film. Reece Dinsdale playing John, our central character. Policeman in an interrogation room with a suspect that he's got something on. You never see the actual person he's talking to. It's kind of always over his shoulder. You're just focused on John the entire time. Because of the fact of, what his job in this moment is, he's a policeman interrogating a suspect. He knows this guy has done something and he needs to get inside his head and make him believe that there's no hope. He is guilty and he knows he's guilty. Get a confession out of him, basically. And you see John going through this persona. He's basically playing an act. Good cop, bad cop, but there's no other person in the room, so he's kind of playing both.
I can be very nice, and I can be very nasty. Either way, I'm having a statement out of you.
He's cocky and charming, and it's a version of what his character's like for the rest of the film. It's a version of what his character's like, I'm sure, in general, but he's getting into a performance. He's becoming a chameleon in the moment to be what he needs to be to get inside the guy's head. He's playing the role he needs to play. And you also see he really, really enjoys it, because when he gets out after getting the confession, he's fist pumping the air and loving it, shouting like he's so excited. That tells you everything that's going to happen, because it's called ID. It's a reference to the fact that they're going undercover, so they're going to have false identifications. But it's also because the whole film is about that sense of identity and how you can lose your sense of identity when you delve into a different way of life.
Driving licences, medical cards, UB40s, the lot.
Yeah, look, John. Your criminal record.
Truancy, theft, juvenile court, detention centre, do a runner, 2 house break-ins, assault on a fray, then assault on a copper, suspended sentence, heavy fine.
Better not mess with him then.
This film was actually based on a real-life case called Operation Full Time, which was when police were trying to infiltrate West Ham's gangs that were running and associated with their hooligan scene. I couldn't find any names or information about it, but supposedly one of the officers involved in that operation basically went the same way as John does in this film. There's a character that later on in the film says, I was only doing it because I enjoyed the danger. And that kind of sums up what this film's all about. It's about hooliganism. It's about police going undercover. But what it's really about is how toxic ways of life, toxic living, toxic relationships, toxic behavior can be intoxicating. It can be alluring. It can be exciting. Some people get drawn into that and they can fight it or turn the other way, and some people can't and they just get sucked into it and change as a person.
I realised actually when I started watching this film I had already seen this, and British film has a lot of films about football hooliganism. Green Street,
Complete pile of shit.
Complete pile of crap with Frodo Baggins with his mate who's trying to do a British accent who's clearly not British. Football Factory, which is a
fun movie, definitely.
Film. Then you got another one that's based on the leader of the West Ham firm called Cass, which isn't great. This is probably one of the lesser known ones for the newer generation.
I'm having the time of my life.
One of my dad's claim to fame is whenever he sees Billy from EastEnders, he points and goes, I used to play Sunday League with Billy from EastEnders down Hackney Marshes. Yeah, so he came in and was like, oh, is this ID? And he starts watching it and going through it. And he was saying back when this was released in 95, it was quite big.
It's funny you say there about 1995, because when I remembered this film, I remembered it as at most an early 80s film. You think Pulp Fiction was coming out at the same time as this. Those opening credits with that blue opacity, nearly sort of like the opening credits of A Clockwork Orange. And just everything about it just feels so much older. And I don't even say that in a bad way. I actually kind of liked it. I found it quite charming. But when I was obviously looking it up to get up the IMDb and find where I could actually watch it again, I just could not believe this was made in 1995. Now, really, I should have known that because the actor playing John was in my other favourite TV movie of all time, and I think maybe the scariest apocalypse film of all time, Threads. And that was made around the 90s as well. So I should have known, really, but I was just shocked when I saw it because the film feels so old.
We want their sentences in years, not months. Want them on conspiracy. We want their ghoulies pickled on a plate for the Home Secretary.
John gets assigned to this new undercover role for this operation where they're going to try and infiltrate Shadwell United's hooligan scene. Shadwell United not existing in real life, but clearly being based on Millwall. Millwall has the Den, this has the kennel, they're known as the Lions, they're known as the Dogs. It's not even loosely based, really. It's pretty much like they've just changed the names of everything to do with it slightly. And he gets his crack team of people put together. He's got Billy Mitchell off EastEnders, Phillip Glenister playing Charlie, who you probably recognise from Life on Mars, playing the dodgy bent copper. You've also got Richard Graham playing Trevor, who's the sergeant and the highest ranking officer amongst the 4 lads going undercover. But it's one of those things where he's technically the leader in rank, but if you stuck these lads on a desert island, he wouldn't be the leader, because he just wouldn't. But bureaucracy and administration of how like a whole police system works, he is respected as the leader because he's the higher rank. But as they start to go undercover, they basically have been thrown on a desert island. They've been thrown to the walls. They're not in that network and structure of police ranking anymore. They're just in with these fucking animals, you know, going around in the Rock, which is the proper dodgy pub that even the police assigning them to this operation have warned them not to go to because they sniff out police straight away. They're thrown in with these fucking animals and psychopaths and hooligans. It is survival of the fittest, and pretty quickly John becomes essentially the de facto leader of the group. From the get-go, he is just made for this. He knows how to get in. He's great at thinking on his feet. He's the one who thinks it through and spearheads the strategy of how they're going to get in with the Rock. They're going to pretend to be painting decorators, and they're going in there at lunchtime, having a drink, get friendly with the barmaid, so by the time Bob, who's the landlord, who apparently can sniff out police straight away, actually meets him for the first time, the barmaid will already be saying, usual lads, so he can get in with them. And you see him infiltrating it, and there starts to become this tension between him and Trevor, because I feel like Trevor was getting jealous of the fact that John was just so much better than him at that. You know, he was the liability and John was the one kind of saving him from putting his foot in it.
I'm fucking fine. It's him. He grasses a meet in Wesley, throws his weight around the pub, blows our crib with Bub, then tries to act the caveman with Linda.
I like the way that we were first introduced to the Shadwell faithful. They all split off and go to like all different pubs around the area and hear Chadwell, Chadwell. So you know they got it right and they go in. It's kind of like us when we walk into the George of like Enfield Town like many years ago, and then we're not regulars and it'd be like the Wild West.
You hear the record skip and everyone turns around to look.
You know, they're set up on, are you Chadwell?
What the fuck are you staring at?
Nothing, mate. Yeah, calm down, have a drink.
Just tell your mate to fuck off out of my face. I don't like being stared at.
Fucking right.
So don't give us fucking hassle. We're Shadwell like you, all right?
Oh, you reckon? Who we playing tomorrow?
Pentland away.
Not asking you.
I like this scene because the way they're trying to distinguish whether they are or not, they're like, what do you think of this player? And then Trevor's having an absolute nightmare. They're questioning him, saying, no, you answer. And John's saving him because John's done his research. He's like, great player, but slow. And just from that kind of like brief interaction, it's like, oh, you know football. It's so tribal. And then later on, they see him go to an away game on the train and they're like, oh, you really are Chadwell. I like it how easy it is for them to be accepted into the tribe.
They actually don't mind John from the get-go, but it's Trevor that fucks it up because he's staring at him in the pub like an idiot as well, and that's what attracts their interest in the first place. But they have the balls to then go up to him when they see him on the train the next day because they got thrown out of the pub and beaten up a little bit. They're kind of cool about it, they're laughing about it, they're like, yeah, we'll play cards, what you're saying, blah, 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 making a joke about things. And that's what gets them in with them. And that is male bonding 101. Like, not as an adult, like you're supposed to grow out of that sort of thing, but how many friends guys have where they met having a fight or a big argument?
Yeah.
That is how they meet, and then they end up becoming best mates. It's a universal language. You meet someone, unless they're from America or like a small fraction of places on the planet, it's that universal language. It's you always have that icebreaker to go to.
The worst one is, you know, when you're at work and a new hire comes in, showing them where like the coffee and shit are, you're like, when should I say it? What football team do you support? And then they turn around and go, I don't really like
Yeah,
football.
and you're like,
fuck you. And you ostracize them. But yeah, it's really good how how it sets it up, and they're going to all the games and they're really deep into the Chadwell firm now.
Pretty much any football hooligan film I've seen, when you see those hooligan scenes, it just never feels right. Like, not that I'm some expert on it, I've never been in a fucking pub with these people or a room with these people, but it's that you know it when you see it sort of thing. And there's something about the hooligan scenes in this, the way it's done, it rings true. Like, it feels authentic, it feels realistic and believable in a way no other hooligan film I've ever seen has felt. And just the hooligan scenes in general are fucking brilliant. You know, you've got away travelling buses getting their windows smashed in, you know, a bunch of Arsenal fans at one point on one side of the pub kick through the fucking door or window or whatever, and they start trading blows and fighting each other. People getting stabbed and like having razor blades across the side of their head during matches. It's brilliant, and you yourself start getting sucked in. The film starts to juxtaposition these scenes of their home lives, you know, the four lads and their wives at dinner together, or just him and the wife, or at home, or going for drinks, or meeting, you know, the mother-in-law. With every scene you see them becoming more and more and more bored with their dreary, wet, same old, normal, run-of-the-mill picket fence lives they have at home. But then every scene where they're getting more and more into this hooligan world and making more friends with these oddball characters that make up this hooligan firm, you just see them having more and more fun. And to be honest, you have more and more fun watching it. They're the fun scenes you're looking forward to, not these fucking boring scenes with his missus and their dumb friends sitting around talking about mortgages and fucking annual percentage rates and eating cornflakes in the morning.
Hey, go up west for a quiet pint and get a load of fucking gooners down your neck. Wait. Nick, mate, duck.
Yeah, I really like this film because it really has three different elements. You know, their normal life, their lives as they go deeper undercover and some of them lose it, and the bureaucracy element where cuts to them working the case and, you know, they're getting pressure from up above, like saying, where's the result? You've been doing this for how long? It's really well directed in the way that it will just cut from home life to Chadwell football matches to the bureaucracy element, and it's stitched together really well, and the pacing is fantastic.
I know you lot think you're the cream that floats on top of a bottle of piss, but any more row, you're on report.
Won't happen again, Sarge.
You've got to draw the line somewhere.
There's all these great little ingenious moments where John has to think on his feet. And I think like the reason he thrives in it is because he actually enjoys those moments on some sick twisted level when he's close to getting caught. And that's why he's so good at thinking on his feet, and he doesn't panic and he doesn't freak out like Trevor does. You know, he's constantly nearly getting caught or dumping them in it because he's being an idiot. You know, there's one moment where they've gone to a football match and Trevor, again being stupid, he's seen they have blades and he's called it in to the police, which is done because write that down, keep getting the evidence, don't call in every little thing, because as soon as they do that, Bob, who's the landlord, he's like, we have a rat, we've got more police in here, we got to figure out who it is.
Dave Armstrong was set up for a fucking burglary. He was in police custody at the time.
All the same, there's bill or glass or snouts here. Our job is we smoke them out and snuff them. Fucking rip their faces off our welfare.
Naturally, who they're going to look at? They're going to look at the two lads who have just shown up recently in the past few months. And firstly, he's like, how dare you accuse me? He does the old switcheroo, turn it around on him to try and get some of the heat off him. But then there's such a genius moment where they're playing on a little it box. You know, those little games you have in pubs and getting the answers. And he gets asked over to answer one of the questions. And he gets all upset and storms off because he says, oh, you know I can't read them right. Which obviously, like, if you can't read them right, then he's not going to be able to become a fucking copper. He can hear them talking inside and he's just cracking up outside because he's delighted with himself. He's done it again. He's pulled the wool over their eyes.
Do you know what? I did think Trevor's a bumbling buffoon in a lot of this film, but I think he done quite well in this scene where he's like, you've just accused a guy who can't even read and write of being a copper, to like add to it. I like this next scene where it cuts to them at headquarters. The higher up is reviewing the case, and this is a crucial meeting to like examine the evidence, say, look, have you made enough progress for this operation to continue? And they're telling them like, we've got really deep in and we've convinced them that he can't read or write. And the higher up's like, what do you mean you can't read or write?
How did you pass the police exam if you can't read or write?
I don't know, I didn't really understand that.
I think it was just kind of hammering home like the growing disdain that John is starting to have for the actual police.
Yeah.
If you can't read or write, how did you become a policeman?
Sir, he can read or write. It's part of his cover.
I made it up.
Oh, I see.
And how much he doesn't look at them and think, oh yeah, one on my own anymore. He's starting to look at all the Shadwell lads he knows down from the Rock, the local pub. They're his own, they're his people. There's one point where they set up in a little sort of warehouse as a makeshift office to work out of because they don't want to keep going back to the police station. They're all saying like, who can we pin it on? Who have we got evidence on? Who do we think this? And he's like, fuck that, these are our mates. And two of the others are kind of, Trevor especially is like, can't say that, what are you talking about? And Billy Mitchell's like, no, they are our mates. I'm having the time of my life. And it's the first time any of them have acknowledged it. Although John is the one that gets most seduced by this way of life and excited by the danger and the craziness of it all, it does affect the others as well. Like, they all are loving this lifestyle. They're all having the time of their lives. They're all fucking enjoying being football hooligans.
Yeah, I think bar Trevor, who hates it.
No, he likes it as well. He does. Like, you can see.
Yeah.
He does like it as well. He gets into it as well. Maybe the least. Maybe he's the most uncomfortable with it and has the most self-awareness as it's happening. But he does like it as well.
In between all of this, as events are unfolding, it really is having a big impact on their personal home lives now. We've got the mum from Outnumbered.
Oh, right, yeah. Is that her? Yeah.
Yeah, it's her, Claire Skinner. They're so deep into it now, they're like literally discussing it as it's their football team for life. Like, are you coming to whatever team it is away? And then he's like, no, she's got other plans. And it cuts to them on a beach in like Tenerife or Mallorca or wherever you went in 1995. Relaxing, but he's got the fucking radio listening to the coverage of Chadwell, and she's getting fucking fuming, and it ends up, she basically says, look, ultimatum, you walk away from me when it's over. In between this, he's having a love triangle affair with the barmaid from the Rock. He goes back to her and finally lets temptations like release themselves, and he starts shacking up with her. So it really has seeped in fully into his life now. It's really taken him over.
Yeah, because that's kind of like at the very end of his marriage, but things were deteriorating horribly throughout this. And at the start, you see scenes with her and he's a gent at a fancy restaurant drinking red wine and hanging out, and a deterioration to the point where he becomes an animal. There's that scene around Christmas time with the Christmas trees up and he's just swearing at her and being rude to her and being like, what are you looking at? And she's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, what's happened to you? And she makes a dig about how she doesn't fuck him anymore, and he just fucking, kind of rapes her, kind of not rapes her, because I guess she does go along with it, but he just fucks her up against the wall against her will and then throws her on the floor and walks off. He is disgusting at this point. He's just a completely different person. And she's still trying to hang in there, but he does still love it. Like, he is inside there somewhere. And he is still refusing the advances from the barmaid. But that scene where he finally ditches his wife, goes back home, fucks the barmaid, the way it's filmed, it's like the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde moment. It's intercut with him getting into fights and violence and shouting and screaming and at matches, intercutting back to his face as he's fucking her like a fucking animal. Didn't look like a great shag, to be honest, the way he was pumping it. Looked a bit clunky and awkward, but other than that, he was fucking passionate. The one tether to his old life that he was holding on to that was still there was him and his missus, and now that's broken. He truly is just now transformed into a different person.
Got some good stuff from the surveillance camera at Wapping. Yeah, reckon we've pinned one of their top boys.
Who is it?
No, we don't know him. Thought you might be able to put a name to the face.
Who is that runt, John?
No one I know.
In the midst of all of this, the top brass of the firm, who's like this black guy, straight up gangster, has seen John's work, and he's like, you know what, you're a useful guy, we can have you in our operations. Because we see in the first scene in the film, they're reviewing CCTV footage and they're like, these are the top dogs, and he's one of them. He's really now moving up the ladder of the firm.
This is what they've been building towards. This is what they've wanted to do the whole time, and they're finally meeting legit gangsters, legit real villains, like he says when he's reporting it back to the police. But just as it's finally happening, the whole operation gets shut down.
The operation is being terminated forthwith. No arrests or charges will be made.
I've got tickets for the Oldham game. If we win, we get promoted.
You are never to set foot in Shadwell Town Football Club again.
For some reason, in all of these Football Factory Green Street, there's always like a sort of like mentally disabled character running about within the firm.
Gumbo.
Yeah, you got Gumbo.
Really well done, by the way, as well. Like, it's very hard to do a special needs traumatized, whatever he is, because I think maybe he was normal at some point, they hint at one point, but whatever he is, this actor nails it.
It reminds me of the performance in Dead Man's Shoes.
Yeah.
But Gumbo is kind of like the group lackey. They kind of like get him to do all the stuff, and you know, he goes to the games with him. But anyway, he gets nicked later on, and he's in the interview room, and Trevor comes in, and I really like this scene because it showed us the weakness of his mental facilities. He's like, Trevor, but why are you here? And then like Trevor has to properly explain to him, I'm a policeman. And even then he's going, but you hate police. Like,
yeah, he's like, you hate old Bill.
Yeah. It's like a Muppet. He's like, oh.
But it's interesting as well because this is Trevor long after the operation has been shut down. But he's fully back to his old self. He has shaken off. He was getting into that lifestyle, but he's shaken it all off. He's fine. He's back to normal now. You don't see what happens to Billy Mitchell and the other lad, but you assume they probably are the same. You know, they're probably bored. They're probably reminiscing about the old life, but you assume they're probably back into their normal lives again. But once the evidence that they did manage to gather gets used against the Rock, the pub, and the landlord, Bob. By the way, did you recognise who was playing Bob?
It's like what we discussed earlier. It's like, I recognise the guy.
I'll give you a clue.
But I don't know who it is.
Well. If it isn't little Alex, it's Dim from A Clockwork Orange.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Absolute legend.
Fucking hell, man.
So Bob, the landlord, Dim, he's gone back inside. The pub's been shut down, you know, loads of people gone back inside, like everyone's getting arrested, and they're upset. They're like, fuck, like, I didn't want the pub to get shut down. Like, they're so into that now that they ended up ditching their wives to go there on Christmas Eve. Because that is truly their family. That's who they're resonating with now. And it all gets shut down. He's trying to cling on to whatever remnants of this new life he has is there, and he goes and sees the barmaid from the Rock. But she wants nothing to do with him. She's saying, like, I know you're a fucking copper. Get out of here. You've got the Rock shut down. And he kind of goes into her house and he's like, well, when did you know I was a copper? And she was like, the moment you walked in. And she says that great line that kind of sums up the film is that the only reason I wanted to fuck you was because I knew you were a copper and how much trouble I'd get in with my uncle and everyone around me and how much trouble you'd get in. I was turned on by the danger. That's what I was into. That's what I was enjoying. And that's probably why they also did connect on some level, is because they understood each other in that way. That's what he was getting brought into. That's what was dragging him into this life and seducing him. He was excited by the danger. And in the final scene, fucking brilliant scene, it really stayed with me the first time I watched this as a kid, where Trevor is working on a police presence during a BNP march with a bunch of Nazi skinheads doing Zeke Heils and walking down the street, and he suddenly recognises John in amongst them with a skinhead and Zeke Heiling, and he goes and talks to him and is like, what are you doing? But he says, I'm on a job, I'm undercover, like, you're going to get me killed, get out of here. And he leaves him, but you know as the audience, he's not undercover. This is just what he's had to. He's so desperate for that thrill. He's so chasing that drug he's got addicted to that he's literally resorted to joining this group of people just so he can be a part of something again. And it ends with him, shaved head, Nazi tattoos, and Zeke Heiling into the air.
Yeah, fucking great film.
Fucking powerful shit, man.
But I'd highly recommend this. It's got so many different elements. It's got football hooliganism. It's got detectives, undercover elements. It's got life stuff. It's got mostly everything in this film, although not a household name. Just an excellent British film, really.
Yeah, I recommend it just if you like films in general. It is fucking fantastic, but without a doubt, like, as a hooligan films go, this is probably the least well known, but the greatest. Maybe that's just to our generation. If you go back a generation, maybe they remember it well, but I'd honestly say it's one of the best British films I've ever seen. And maybe the fact that it was a made-for-TV movie holds it back, because it is technically, in some aspects, lacking. It doesn't look and feel like a 90s film, but to be honest, that probably adds to it, because I don't know if it was set in the 80s, but hooliganism at its worst was a story of Britain in the 80s, and the fact that it feels more like an 80s film probably adds to that. It's the most grounded, authentic, real depiction of hooliganism. Even if you don't care about hooliganism or you're not interested in that, just as an exploration into how someone can get seduced by the wrong path. Just an amazing film, so easy recommendation for ID.
Come on, Tom, leave it, mate! Oh, fucking kill him! It's not worth it, he's one of us! Bill him and your job's down the pan! Think I'll give a toss about that, they can shove their fucking job!